This video has 100 sample questions from Domain 5 of the CISSP that will help you learn the Identity and Access Management module. Apart from getting you ready for the CISSP test, it will boost your confidence. After answering each question, pause the video to confirm your answer, and then check to see whether you were right. Let's begin. 1. A data center is implementing layered physical security. After passing through a guard station at the perimeter, personnel must access the server room. Which of the following provides the strongest authentication for entry into the server room itself? A. Cipher lock on the door. B. Proximity card reader. C. Proximity card reader combined with a biometric iris scanner. D. Motion detector with an alarm. The correct answer is C. Proximity card reader combined with a biometric iris scanner. Explanation. The combination of a proximity card reader, something you have, and a biometric scanner, something you are, constitutes strong, two-factor authentication, providing a higher level of assurance than single-factor methods. A cipher lock is single-factor, something you know. A card reader is single-factor, something you have. A motion detector is a detection control, not an authentication mechanism for entry. 2. To harden corporate workstations, a security policy dictates that standard users cannot alter system configuration files, access a command prompt, or install unapproved applications. These restrictions are enforced by a central administrator and cannot be changed by the users. This is a clear example of what type of access control? A. Context dependent. B. Discretionary. C. Non-discretionary. D. Mandatory. The correct answer is C. Non-discretionary. Explanation. Non-discretionary access controls are centrally managed by an authoritative entity, like a security administrator, based on organizational policy. Users do not have the discretion to alter these controls, which is precisely the situation described. Discretionary, DAC, would allow user control, and mandatory, MAC, is based on security labels and clearances. 3. A payroll application stores employee names, shifts, work history, and salary information in a single large database table. The requirement is to allow line managers to see all information for their direct reports except for the salary. Which database security mechanism is specifically designed to achieve this? A. Database views. B. Table-level encryption. C. Access control lists, ACLs. D. Keystroke monitoring. The correct answer is A. Database views. Explanation. Database views create virtual tables that can be configured to show only specific columns or rows from an underlying physical table. An administrator can create a manager view of the employee table that excludes the salary column, thereby enforcing granular access control within the application itself. 4. A network-based intrusion detection system, NIDS, is monitoring a company's internet traffic. The system maintains a baseline of normal network behavior, including average traffic volume, common protocols used, and typical connection patterns. When it detects a sudden, massive spike in SYN packets from multiple sources, it triggers an alert. What type of detection method is being used? A. Signature-based. B. Anomaly-based. C. Rule-based. D. Heuristic-based. The correct answer is B. Anomaly-based. Explanation. Anomaly-based, or statistical/behavioral, detection works by creating a profile of normal activity and then flagging significant deviations from that profile. Detecting an unusual spike in traffic volume is a classic example of this method. Signature-based detection would look for a specific, known attack pattern. 5. A company is developing a new mobile application for its customers. Due to the sensitive nature of the data, the security team mandates that any information stored on the mobile device itself, such as cached user profiles or session tokens, must be encrypted. This requirement is a control for protecting which type of asset? A. Facilities. B. Services. C. Information. D. Systems. The correct answer is C. Information. Explanation. The primary goal of encrypting data on a device is to protect the confidentiality and integrity of the information itself. While the device is a system, the specific control, encryption, is aimed directly at safeguarding the data stored on it from unauthorized access if the device is lost or compromised. 6. A security team is deploying an intrusion detection system, IDS, sensor on a modern, fully switched network. To ensure the sensor can analyze all traffic flowing to and from the critical server VLAN, where must the traffic be directed? A. To a network tap or a switch port configured for port mirroring. B. To a router that connects the VLAN to the Internet. C. To the firewall's management interface. D. To a broadcast hub placed within the VLAN. The correct answer is A. To a network tap or a switch port configured for port mirroring. Explanation. In a switched environment, traffic is sent only to its specific destination port, making it invisible to an IDS sensor plugged into a standard port. To allow the IDS to see all traffic, a copy of the traffic from the desired ports or VLAN must be sent to the IDS sensor's port. This is accomplished using a network tap or by configuring a switched port analyzer, SPAN, port on the switch. 7. A security administrator is configuring a firewall using a list of rules that explicitly define which traffic is allowed to pass between network segments. The firewall's configuration includes a statement at the very end of the rule set that blocks any traffic not previously matched. What is this foundational security principle called? A. Implicit deny. B. Least privilege. C. Defense in depth. D. Separation of duties. The correct answer is A. Implicit deny. Explanation. The principle of implicit deny dictates that if a particular subject's access is not explicitly granted, it should be denied. A final rule in a firewall or ACL that blocks all other traffic is the direct implementation of this principle, ensuring that no unintended access is permitted by default. 8. A company's security policy requires that all data stored on USB drives be encrypted. An employee saves a confidential report on an unencrypted drive and then gives the drive to a colleague. The colleague then uses a secure wipe utility to erase the drive before returning it. Which vulnerability was present before the drive was wiped? A. Data remanence. B. Emanation security. C. Erase condition. D. A covert channel. The correct answer is A. Data remanence. Explanation. Data remanence is the residual data that remains on media even after a file has been deleted through normal means. The confidential data on the unencrypted USB drive would persist and could be recovered until a secure deletion or wiping method is used to overwrite the data sectors. This is the specific vulnerability that the policy and the secure wipe utility are designed to mitigate. 9. An organization's network is divided into several segments, including a user LAN, a server farm, and a DMZ. The security policy dictates that systems in the DMZ cannot initiate connections to the internal user LAN. Which devices are typically used to implement and enforce this logical access control at the network level? A. Intrusion detection systems, IDS, and proxy servers. B. Load balancers and web application firewalls, WAFs. C. Routers with access control lists, ACLs, and firewalls. D. Switches and network hubs. The correct answer is C. Routers with access control lists, ACLs, and firewalls. Explanation. Routers and firewalls are the primary technical controls used to enforce access restrictions between different network segments. They operate at the network and transport layers to filter traffic based on rules, like ACLs, that define which source and destination addresses, ports, and protocols are permitted. 10. To prevent brute force password guessing attacks against its online portal, a company configures its authentication system to temporarily lock an account for 15 minutes after 5 consecutive failed login attempts. This threshold of 5 failed attempts is also known as what? A. A clipping level. B. A false positive rate. C. A crossover error rate. D. A security label. The correct answer is A. A clipping level. Explanation. A clipping level is an older but still relevant term for a threshold value. In the context of failed authentications, it is the number of acceptable failed attempts before a predefined action, such as locking the account or alerting an administrator, is triggered. 11. An organization provides a kiosk for public use. To limit the risk of misuse, the system is configured with a custom interface that only allows users to access a web browser and a specific set of pre-approved applications. The underlying operating system, command prompt, and file system are inaccessible. This is an example of what type of control? A. Network segmentation. B. Database view. C. Constrained user interface. D. Mandatory access control, MAC. The correct answer is C. Constrained user interface. Explanation. A constrained user interface is a technical control that restricts what users can do or see on a system. Menus, shells, and custom application front-ends that hide the underlying OS are all forms of this control, designed to enforce the principle of least privilege. 12. An attacker sits between a user and a web server, intercepting the user's login credentials as they are transmitted. The attacker then uses these captured credentials to log in as the user and gain unauthorized access to the application. What is this type of attack called? A. Session hijacking. B. Man-in-the-middle, MITM, attack. C. Denial of service, DOS, attack. D. Cross-site scripting, XSS, attack. The correct answer is B. Man-in-the-middle, MITM, attack. Explanation. A man-in-the-middle, MITM, attack occurs when an attacker secretly positions themselves between two communicating parties, intercepting and potentially altering the communication. Capturing credentials as they are transmitted is a classic goal of an MITM attack. Session hijacking involves stealing a valid session token after authentication has occurred. 13. A security analyst is using a protocol analyzer to troubleshoot a network issue. The tool captures all network traffic and allows the analyst to inspect the contents of individual packets. An attacker could use a similar tool for malicious purposes. What is a tool that captures network traffic often called? A. Port scanner. B. Vulnerability scanner. C. Network sniffer. D. Honeypot. The correct answer is C. Network sniffer. Explanation. A network sniffer is a tool, either hardware or software, that captures, or sniffs, data packets as they travel across a network. While legitimate administrators use them for diagnostics, attackers use them to capture sensitive information like credentials passed in clear text. 14. A software development process has a flaw where the function that checks a user's permissions is separate from the function that performs the action. An attacker discovers that by sending a high volume of requests, they can sometimes get the action to execute before the permission check is complete, leading to unauthorized access. What is this type of vulnerability called? A. A buffer overflow. B. A race condition. C. A denial of service. D. A cross-site request forgery. The correct answer is B. A race condition. Explanation. A race condition occurs when the output of a process depends on an uncontrolled sequence or timing of other events. In security, this often happens when authorization and action steps are split, and an attacker can race to get the action completed before the authorization check denies it. 15. A government agency is concerned that sensitive information could be captured by attackers using specialized antennas to detect the faint electromagnetic signals emitted by computer monitors and other electronic devices. To mitigate this risk, they procure equipment that is specially shielded. This shielding technology is known by what name? A. Faraday cage. B. Tempest. C. Signal jamming. D. Eavesdropping. The correct answer is B. Tempest. Explanation. Tempest is a standard and a technology that involves shielding electronic equipment to suppress electromagnetic emanations, thereby preventing attackers from eavesdropping on these signals to reconstruct sensitive information. A Faraday cage is a type of shielding, but Tempest is the specific standard and technology for this purpose. 16. A host-based intrusion detection system, HIDS, is installed on a critical web server. Which of the following activities would the HIDS be able to detect that a network-based IDS, NIDS, positioned at the network perimeter would likely miss? A. A denial of service, DOS, flood attack targeting the server's IP address. B. An external port scan of the server. C. A user with valid credentials attempting to delete critical system files on the server. D. An attempt to exploit a known vulnerability in the server's web application from the internet. The correct answer is C. A user with valid credentials attempting to delete critical system files on the server. Explanation. A HIDS operates on the host itself and monitors its internal state, including system files, processes, and logs. It can detect malicious activity originating from a legitimate, authenticated user, which would appear as normal traffic to a NIDS. The other options, A, B, D, all involve network traffic patterns that a NIDS is specifically designed to detect. 17. A company has deployed a honeypot that appears to be an unpatched web server with several open services. The goal is to attract attackers and study their methods. The company's legal counsel has advised that the honeypot should not contain any data or messages that actively trick an attacker into believing they are authorized to download files. This advice is to avoid what illegal activity? A. Enticement. B. Entrapment. C. Eavesdropping. D. Intrusion. The correct answer is B. Entrapment. Explanation. Entrapment is the illegal act of inducing or tricking someone into committing a crime they would not have otherwise committed. In the context of a honeypot, presenting a fake but passive system is considered legal enticement. However, actively encouraging or luring an attacker to perform a specific illegal act, like downloading fake confidential files, can cross the line into entrapment. 18. A security team is deploying an intrusion prevention system, IPS, instead of a traditional intrusion detection system, IDS. What is the primary functional difference between an IPS and an IDS? A. An IPS is host-based, while an IDS is network-based. B. An IPS can only use signature-based detection, while an IDS can use anomaly-based detection. C. An IPS is an active, inline device that can block malicious traffic, while an IDS is a passive device that can only detect and alert. D. An IPS is designed for internal networks, while an IDS is designed for the network perimeter. The correct answer is C. An IPS is an active, inline device that can block malicious traffic, while an IDS is a passive device that can only detect and alert. Explanation. The key difference is that an intrusion prevention system, IPS, is an active control that sits in line with network traffic and can proactively block, drop, or reject malicious packets based on its rule set. An intrusion detection system, IDS, is a passive, out-of-band control that only monitors a copy of the traffic and generates alerts when it detects a problem. 19. When an application has finished using a block of memory, the operating system is supposed to clear that memory before reallocating it to a new application. If the OS fails to do this, the new application might be able to read sensitive data left behind by the previous one. This vulnerability is related to which security concept? A. Covert channel. B. Data remnants. C. Erase condition. D. Emanation security. The correct answer is B. Data remnants. Explanation. Data remnants is the residual representation of data that remains even after it has been nominally erased or removed. In this context, the sensitive information left in the memory block is an example of remnants. Proper object reuse procedures require that the system securely clears all information from an object, like a memory block, before it is reallocated to another subject. 20. An organization is deploying a new remote access VPN solution for its global workforce. The primary security requirements for the authentication protocol are to encrypt the entire authentication packet, not just the password, and to distinctly separate the functions of authentication, authorization, and accounting. Which protocol should be chosen? A. Radius. B. Kerberos. C. TACACS+. D. LDAP. The correct answer is C. TACACS+. Explanation. TACACS+ is superior to Radius in this scenario because it encrypts the entire body of the packet and operates on a true authentication, authorization, and accounting (AAA) architecture, which separates these three functions for more granular control. Radius only encrypts the password field and combines authentication and authorization services. Kerberos is primarily an authentication protocol, and LDAP is a directory access protocol. 21. A web application relies on session cookies to maintain a user's logged-in state. To prevent an attacker from capturing and reusing a session cookie, which configuration is the most critical security control? A. Setting the cookie's expiration time to be indefinite. B. Ensuring the cookie only stores the user's ID and no other sensitive data. C. Generating a new cookie for every single page visited. D. Forcing the cookie to be transmitted exclusively over an encrypted, HTTPS, connection by setting the secure flag. The correct answer is D. Forcing the cookie to be transmitted exclusively over an encrypted, HTTPS, connection by setting the secure flag. Explanation. Transmitting session cookies over an encrypted channel like HTTPS is paramount to prevent them from being intercepted via network sniffing. An attacker on the same network could easily capture an unencrypted cookie and use it to hijack the user's session. While the other options relate to session security, preventing interception is the most fundamental control. 22. An organization uses a Kerberos-based single sign-on (SSO) solution. When a user first logs into their workstation, their client machine communicates with a central trusted service to get an initial ticket. What is this central service that authenticates principals and issues tickets called? A. Ticket Granting Service, TGS. B. Key Distribution Center, KDC. C. Authentication Service, AS. D. Service Principal Name, SPN. The correct answer is B. Key Distribution Center, KDC. Explanation. The Key Distribution Center, KDC, is the core trusted authority in a Kerberos realm. It comprises two logical parts, the Authentication Service, AS, which handles initial authentication, and the Ticket Granting Service, TGS, which issues tickets for specific services. The KDC is the single entity that encompasses both functions. 23. An online travel agency allows users to log in using their existing Google or Facebook accounts. This is achieved through a trust relationship where the travel agency, the relying party, accepts authentication assertions from Google or Facebook, the identity providers. This architectural model is known as A. Centralized identity management. B. Credential management. C. Identity federation. D. Account provisioning. The correct answer is C. Identity federation. Explanation. Identity federation describes a model where two or more distinct organizations or security domains establish a trust relationship to link user identities, allowing credentials from one domain to be accepted by another. This enables cross-domain single sign-on, as seen in Login with Google scenarios. 24. A company is establishing a formal process for new employees. Before an employee is granted any system access, they must present government-issued photo identification in person to an HR representative, who verifies their identity against their employment records. This rigorous, in-person verification process is an example of what? A. Authentication. B. Authorization. C. Identity proofing. D. Account provisioning. The correct answer is C. Identity proofing. Explanation. Identity proofing is the process of collecting and verifying information about a person to establish confidence in their claimed identity. It is a critical first step that must occur before credentials are issued and accounts are provisioned. Authentication is the subsequent act of verifying identity, e.g., with a password, and authorization is granting permissions. 25. Many modern applications and services are moving towards authentication methods that do not require users to remember complex passwords. Instead, they might use a FIDO2 compliant security key or a biometric verification on a smartphone that sends a cryptographic assertion to the server. What is this category of authentication called? A. Multi-factor authentication, MFA. B. Token-based authentication. C. Passwordless authentication. D. Single sign-on, SSO. The correct answer is C. Passwordless authentication. Explanation. Passwordless authentication refers to methods that verify a user's identity without requiring them to provide a knowledge-based secret like a password or PIN. FIDO2 security keys and biometrics are prime examples of this approach, aiming to improve both security and user experience. While it can be a form of MFA, its defining characteristic is the absence of a traditional password. 26. A web portal provides access to several distinct backend applications. To improve user experience, the organization implements a system where a user logs in once to the portal and is then able to access all authorized backend applications without being prompted for credentials again. What is this capability called? A. Federated identity. B. Multi-factor authentication, MFA. C. Single sign-on, SSO. D. Centralized authorization. The correct answer is C. Single sign-on, SSO. Explanation. Single sign-on, SSO, is a technology that enables a user to authenticate once and gain access to multiple independent software systems without being prompted to authenticate again. This directly matches the scenario of logging into a portal to access multiple applications seamlessly. 27. To reduce the attack surface associated with long-lived user sessions, a security architect designs a system where a contractor is granted access to a specific production server only for a pre-approved 2-hour maintenance window. The access is automatically provisioned at the start of the window and revoked at the end. What is this concept called? A. Single sign-on, SSO. B. Role-based access control, RBAC. C. Just-in-time, JIT, access. D. Federated identity. The correct answer is C. Just-in-time, JIT, access. Explanation. Just-in-time, JIT, access is a principle where users are granted specific permissions to a resource for a limited period to perform a particular task. This approach minimizes the standing privileges an account has, thereby reducing risk. The scenario of providing temporary, time-bound access is a perfect example of JIT. 28. A company is rolling out a new enterprise-wide application and uses a password vault to manage credentials. The vault can automatically generate strong, random passwords for each user and store them securely, requiring the user to only remember one master password to unlock the vault. What is the primary security risk associated with this tool? A. The vault may not integrate with all applications. B. The compromise of the user's single master password would expose all other stored credentials. C. The vault requires significant network bandwidth to operate. D. The randomly generated passwords are difficult for users to remember. The correct answer is B. The compromise of the user's single master password would expose all other stored credentials. Explanation. While password managers, vaults, greatly improve security by enabling the use of unique, complex passwords for every service, their primary weakness is that the master password becomes a single point of catastrophic failure. If an attacker compromises it, they gain access to the user's entire collection of secrets. 29. An organization wants to allow users to access a new web application by logging in with their existing social media accounts. The web application needs a way to verify the user's identity via the social media platform and receive basic profile information, like name and email. Which open standard framework is designed specifically for this type of delegated authentication? A. OAuth 2.0. B. Radius. C. OpenID Connect, OIDC. D. Kerberos. The correct answer is C. OpenID Connect, OIDC. Explanation. OpenID Connect, OIDC, is an authentication layer built on top of the OAuth 2.0 protocol. It is specifically designed to allow clients, like the new web application, to verify the identity of an end user based on the authentication performed by an authorization server, the social media platform, and to obtain basic profile information about the user. OAuth 2.0 by itself is an authorization framework, not an authentication protocol. 30. During an audit of a large, mature organization, it is noted that permissions are managed by assigning users to multiple groups. For example, a single user might be in marketing_team, project_X_users, and London_office_printers. This is a common implementation of which access control concept? A. Discretionary access control, DAC. B. Groups and roles. C. Mandatory access control, MAC. D. Single sign-on, SSO. The correct answer is B. Groups and roles. Explanation. This scenario describes the use of groups to manage access control. In practice, groups are often used to implement role-based access control, RBAC, where membership in a group grants the permissions associated with a specific role or function. This many-to-many relationship simplifies administration compared to assigning permissions to each user individually. 31. A user authenticates to a web application. The application server creates a session and sends a session ID back to the user's browser and a cookie. For the duration of the session, the browser includes this cookie in every request to prove the user has been authenticated. What is the primary function of this process? A. Identification. B. Session management. C. Authorization. D. Accounting. The correct answer is B. Session management. Explanation. Session management is the process of tracking a user's activity across multiple requests. Since HTTP is a stateless protocol, mechanisms like session ID cookies are used to maintain the user's authenticated state, allowing them to interact with the application without having to re-authenticate for every single action. 32. In a biometric system, a law enforcement agency compares a fingerprint found at a crime scene against a large database of known offenders' fingerprints to find a match. What is the term for this one-to-many comparison process? A. Verification. B. Authorization. C. Identification. D. Authentication. The correct answer is C. Identification. Explanation. Identification is a one-to-many, 1N, process that seeks to answer the question, who is this person, by comparing a provided biometric sample against all records in a database. This is distinct from verification, which is a one-to-one, 1:1, comparison to answer the question, is this person who they claim to be? 33. A new startup is building its entire infrastructure on a public cloud platform and wants to offer its employees a seamless login experience for all their SaaS applications, e.g., G Suite, Slack, Salesforce. Instead of building an on-premise identity system, they opt for a cloud-based service that centralizes user identity and provides SSO capabilities. What is this model called? A. Private cloud identity. B. Identity as a service, IDaaS. C. On-premise federation. D. Hybrid identity. The correct answer is B. Identity as a service, IDaaS. Explanation. Identity as a service, IDaaS, is a cloud-based offering that provides a full suite of identity and access management capabilities, including SSO, MFA, and user lifecycle management. It is an ideal solution for cloud-native companies looking to outsource their identity infrastructure. 34. A web application developer is concerned about session hijacking attacks where an attacker steals a valid session cookie. To mitigate this, the developer implements a control that ties the session cookie to the IP address of the user who initially authenticated. If a request comes in with a valid cookie but from a different IP address, the session is invalidated. This is an example of what type of access control? A. Content-dependent access control. B. Context-dependent access control. C. Role-based access control. D. Discretionary access control. The correct answer is B. Context-dependent access control. Explanation. Context-dependent access control makes decisions based on the context or state of a situation, rather than just on identity or content. Using the source IP address as part of the validation check is a perfect example of using the context of the connection to make a security decision. 35. During a security assessment, a consultant notes that a web server has a vulnerability where a user's session token, once issued, is never revalidated or expired by the server as long as the user's browser is open. This allows an attacker who steals the token to use it indefinitely. This is a weakness in which area of design? A. Authentication. B. Identification. C. Authorization. D. Session management. The correct answer is D. Session management. Explanation. Proper session management involves more than just creating a session, it includes securely handling the session token throughout its lifecycle. This includes using secure flags, enforcing idle and absolute timeouts, and providing a means for users to log out, which invalidates the session. The lack of an expiration mechanism is a critical session management flaw. 36. When a client and a server establish a secure connection using TLS, the server presents its digital certificate to the client, and the client verifies it. The client may also be required to present its own certificate to the server for verification before the connection is finalized. What is this two-way verification process called? A. Single sign-on. B. Federated authentication. C. Mutual authentication. D. Transitive trust. The correct answer is C. Mutual authentication. Explanation. Mutual authentication, also known as two-way authentication, is a process where two communicating entities must authenticate to each other before exchanging data. This is common in high-security scenarios, like business-to-business transactions or secure system management, to ensure both parties are legitimate. 37. What is the primary purpose of using groups and roles in an identity and access management (IAM) system? A. To increase the complexity of the access control model. B. To simplify access control administration and enforce the principle of least privilege consistently. C. To allow users to define their own access permissions. D. To ensure every user has a unique set of permissions. The correct answer is B. To simplify access control administration and enforce the principle of least privilege consistently. Explanation. Using groups and roles abstracts permissions away from individual users. Administrators can assign permissions to a role, based on job function, and then assign users to that role. This greatly simplifies administration, makes it scalable, and helps ensure that permissions are applied consistently to all individuals performing the same function. 38. A company wants to enable employees to use their corporate login credentials to access a new third-party, cloud-based human resources portal. The company must remain the authoritative identity provider, IDP, to enforce its own password policies. Which technology standard is designed to exchange authentication and authorization data between the company, IDP, and the cloud vendor, service provider? A. XACML. B. SPML. C. SAML. D. SOAP. The correct answer is C. SAML. Explanation. Security Assertion Markup Language, SAML, is an XML-based standard specifically designed for exchanging authentication and authorization assertions between security domains. This enables federated identity and single sign-on between an organization's IDP and a cloud service provider. XACML defines access control policies, SPML handles provisioning, and SOAP is a messaging protocol. 39. A government agency operates a high-security research network that is completely air-gapped from the Internet. The agency needs to implement a new identity management (IDM) solution to control access to its sensitive systems. Which deployment model is the only feasible choice? A. On-premise. B. Cloud-based, IDaaS. C. Hybrid. D. Public federation. The correct answer is A. On-premise. Explanation. For systems that are not connected to the Internet, such as in an air-gapped network, an on-premise IDM solution is the only viable option. Cloud-based and hybrid models fundamentally require network connectivity to external services, which is impossible in this scenario. 40. An organization has a significant number of legacy applications running on-premise, but is also rapidly adopting new cloud-based SaaS applications. To provide a seamless user experience and centralized control, they need an IDM solution that can manage identities and broker authentication for both environments. What is the most appropriate IDM deployment model? A. Cloud-native, IDaaS only. B. On-premise only. C. Hybrid. D. Decentralized. The correct answer is C. Hybrid. Explanation. A hybrid IDM model integrates on-premise identity solutions, like Active Directory, with cloud-based IDaaS platforms. This approach is ideal for organizations that need to manage access across a mixed environment of legacy on-premise systems and modern cloud services. 41. An organization wants to allow its partners to access a shared supply chain management portal. The organization's security policy requires that the partners manage their own users' credentials, but the portal must be able to trust the authentication performed by the partner's identity systems. Which of the following is the primary enabler for this cross-domain trust? A. A centralized LDAP directory shared between all partners. B. A virtual private network, VPN, connection. C. A federated identity management, FIM, architecture. D. A common password complexity policy. The correct answer is C. A federated identity management, FIM, architecture. Explanation. Federated Identity Management, FIM, is designed to solve this exact problem by creating a trust relationship between different security domains, the organization and its partners. This allows one domain to accept authentication assertions from another, enabling seamless cross-company access without sharing credential databases. 42. A cloud service provider offers identity as a service, IDaaS. A small startup decides to use this service to manage authentication for all its corporate applications instead of building and maintaining its own on-premise Active Directory. What is the primary benefit the startup gains from this approach? A. They retain physical control over the hardware storing identity data. B. They can avoid connecting their applications to the internet. C. They outsource the complexity, maintenance, and security of the identity infrastructure. D. They can use any authentication protocol, regardless of standards. The correct answer is C. They outsource the complexity, maintenance, and security of the identity infrastructure. Explanation. The core value proposition of IDaaS is that it allows an organization to outsource the management of its identity and access control systems. This relieves the organization of the operational burden of deploying, patching, securing, and scaling the IDM infrastructure, allowing them to focus on their primary business. 43. A company is migrating its identity management to a hybrid model. The on-premise Active Directory will be synchronized with a cloud-based IDaaS provider. What is the primary security challenge in this hybrid model that requires careful planning and continuous monitoring? A. Ensuring the physical security of the on-premise data center. B. Managing the synchronization process and protecting credentials as they traverse between the on-premise and cloud environments. C. Training users on how to access the new cloud applications. D. Choosing a cloud provider that is in the same geographical region. The correct answer is B. Managing the synchronization process and protecting credentials as they traverse between the on-premise and cloud environments. Explanation. In a hybrid identity model, the link that synchronizes identities and credentials between the on-premise and cloud systems becomes a critical and high-value target. Securing this synchronization channel, protecting the credentials in transit, and ensuring the integrity of the process are paramount security challenges unique to this model. 44. A company uses a federated identity model with a business partner. When an employee from the partner company attempts to access a shared resource, the company's system needs to verify the partner's identity assertion. Which XML-based language is specifically used to create and exchange these authentication and authorization assertions between the two security domains? A. Service Provisioning Markup Language, SPML. B. Extensible Access Control Markup Language, XACML. C. Security Assertion Markup Language, SAML. D. Extensible Markup Language, XML. The correct answer is C. Security Assertion Markup Language, SAML. Explanation. Security Assertion Markup Language, SAML, is the standard specifically created to allow security domains to exchange authentication and authorization data, known as assertions. This is the core technology that enables federated single sign-on between different organizations. SPML is for provisioning, and XACML is for defining access policies. 45. An advanced AAA protocol was developed by the IETF to overcome the limitations of radius. It uses TCP for more reliable transport, provides end-to-end security through IPsec or TLS, and has a more flexible architecture using a base protocol with various extensions. What is this protocol called? A. TACACS+. B. Diameter. C. Kerberos v5. D. X.500. The correct answer is B. Diameter. Explanation. Diameter was explicitly designed as a successor to radius to address its shortcomings. Its name is a play on words, a diameter is twice the radius. Key improvements include using reliable transport protocols, TCP/SCTP, enhanced security, and a more robust, extensible framework for AAA services in modern networks like mobile IP. 46. A company's internal application development team needs to build functionality that allows its new app to access a user's contact list from a major cloud provider's service. The user must explicitly grant permission for this access without sharing their actual cloud password with the new app. Which framework is designed for this type of delegated authorization? A. SAML 2.0. B. Kerberos. C. OpenID Connect, OIDC. D. OAuth 2.0. The correct answer is D. OAuth 2.0. Explanation. OAuth 2.0 is an authorization framework designed to allow a third-party application, the client, to obtain limited access to a user's resources on another service, the resource server, with the user's explicit consent. It is focused on delegating authorization, which is exactly what the scenario describes. OIDC is an authentication layer on top of OAuth. 47. An organization wants to centralize all identity information from its various systems, including HR databases, legacy mainframe applications, and modern directory services, into a single, authoritative identity store. Some of the legacy systems do not support modern protocols. The chosen solution pulls data from all these sources and consolidates it. What is this type of directory called? A. Virtual directory. B. Hierarchical directory. C. Metadirectory. D. Relational directory. The correct answer is C. Metadirectory. Explanation. A metadirectory is a solution that pulls identity information from various disparate data stores, consolidates it, and stores it in a central directory. This allows for a unified view of identity information across a heterogeneous enterprise environment. 48. An organization is setting up an identity federation with a partner. They are using an XML-based language to define the rules for who can access what resources across the partnership. For example, a policy might state, permit a user with the role partner_manager to read files in the shared_projects directory. Which language is designed for expressing such access control policies in a standardized way? A. SAML. B. SPML. C. XACML. D. SOAP. The correct answer is C. XACML. Explanation. The Extensible Access Control Markup Language, XACML, is an XML-based standard used to define and express attribute-based and policy-based access control rules in a machine-readable format. It is specifically designed to articulate complex authorization policies, as described in the scenario. 49. An automated provisioning system is being configured to create new user accounts. The system needs to communicate with multiple target applications, e.g., email, CRM, ERP, to create accounts for a new user seamlessly. Which XML-based standard is designed for automating the exchange of user provisioning data between applications? A. Security Assertion Markup Language, SAML. B. Service Provisioning Markup Language, SPML. C. Extensible Access Control Markup Language, XACML. D. Simple Object Access Protocol, SOAP. The correct answer is B. Service Provisioning Markup Language, SPML. Explanation. SPML is an XML-based framework specifically designed for exchanging user, resource, and service provisioning information. Its purpose is to automate the user management lifecycle, create, amend, delete accounts across different systems, as described in the scenario. 50. A user successfully authenticates to a web portal using multi-factor authentication. The portal then needs to allow the user to access several back-end services hosted by different partner companies. The portal passes a cryptographically signed document to each partner, asserting the user's identity and attributes. This document is an example of what? A. A security label. B. An authentication token. C. A security assertion. D. A provisioning request. The correct answer is C. A security assertion. Explanation. In federated identity systems like those using SAML, a security assertion is a cryptographically signed package of information, statements, that a trusted identity provider, IDP, makes about a subject. These assertions, which can include identity, attributes, and authorization decisions, are then consumed by service providers, SPs, to grant access. 51. A startup company's development team follows a collaborative model where engineers create project files and are individually responsible for granting read/write permissions to their peers as needed. Which access control model best describes this user-directed approach? A. Mandatory Access Control, MAC. B. Role-Based Access Control, RBAC. C. Discretionary Access Control, DAC. D. Attribute-Based Access Control, ABAC. The correct answer is C. Discretionary Access Control, DAC. Explanation. Discretionary Access Control, DAC, is a model where the owner of a resource can specify, at their own discretion, which subjects can access it. This aligns perfectly with the scenario where individual engineers control permissions for the files they create. MAC, RBAC, and ABAC are centrally managed and do not provide this level of individual user control. 52. A large financial institution is overhauling its access control system to reduce the administrative overhead of assigning permissions to thousands of employees individually. The new strategy is to group permissions based on job functions, such as bank teller, loan officer, and branch manager. Which access control model is being implemented? A. Attribute-based access control, ABAC. B. Role-based access control, RBAC. C. Mandatory access control, MAC. D. Discretionary access control, DAC. The correct answer is B. Role-based access control, RBAC. Explanation. Role-based access control, RBAC, is an approach where access decisions are based on the roles that individual users have within the organization. This method simplifies administration by mapping permissions to job functions, roles, rather than to individual users, which directly addresses the institution's requirements. 53. In a system governed by mandatory access control, MAC, a subject with a secret clearance attempts to write data to a file that has a confidential classification label. Assuming a standard Bell-LaPadula model, no write down, what will be the result? A. The write will be denied. B. The write will be permitted. C. The write will be permitted, and the file's classification will be upgraded to secret. D. The subject's clearance will be temporarily lowered to confidential. The correct answer is A. The write will be denied. Explanation. The Bell-LaPadula model star property, asterisk property, often simplified as no write down, prevents a subject from writing to an object at a lower security level. This rule is designed to prevent the leakage of classified information to less secure files. Since the user's secret clearance is higher than the file's confidential classification, the write operation will be blocked. The core principle of MAC is that the system, not the user, enforces these rules. 54. A next-generation firewall needs to enforce a complex policy, allow access to the financial database only for users in the finance group, from a corporate-owned device, during business hours, and only if there is no active, high-priority security alert for that user's account. Which access control model provides the necessary flexibility and granularity to implement this policy? A. Role-based access control, RBAC. B. Discretionary access control, DAC. C. Mandatory access control, MAC. D. Attribute-based access control, ABAC. The correct answer is D. Attribute-based access control, ABAC. Explanation. Attribute-based access control, ABAC, is the most granular model, making decisions based on policies that evaluate attributes of the subject, object, action, and the environment, context. This policy requires evaluating user role, device type, time of day, and account status, all of which are attributes that ABAC is designed to handle. 55. A financial services company is implementing an access control model where access to sensitive customer data is granted based on real-time analysis of the user's behavior, location, and the type of transaction being attempted. If a user suddenly tries to access a high number of records from an unusual IP address, access is automatically blocked pending verification. Which access control model is this? A. Role-based access control, RBAC. B. Risk-based access control. C. Discretionary access control, DAC. D. Mandatory access control, MAC. The correct answer is B. Risk-based access control. Explanation. Risk-based access control dynamically adjusts access permissions based on the calculated risk of an action. It considers contextual factors like user behavior, location, and resource sensitivity to make real-time decisions, which directly matches the scenario. RBAC, DAC, and MAC use more static criteria like job function, owner discretion, or security labels. 56. A manufacturing company uses a legacy SCADA system on an isolated operational technology, OT, network. They are implementing an identity management solution but are concerned about network latency and reliability for this critical system. Authentication decisions must be made locally and immediately at the machine controller. Which component of an access policy enforcement architecture would handle this? A. Policy Decision Point, PDP. B. Policy Enforcement Point, PEP. C. Policy Administration Point, PAP. D. Policy Information Point, PIP. The correct answer is B. Policy Enforcement Point, PEP. Explanation. The Policy Enforcement Point, PEP, is the component that resides on the local system, like the machine controller, and enforces the access decision. It communicates with the Policy Decision Point, PDP, to get the decision, but the actual act of allowing or denying access happens at the PEP. In a latency-sensitive environment, the PEP is the critical local component. 57. A web server is configured with a rule: deny all access requests to the /admin directory unless the source IP address is within the 10.1.1.0/24 range. This is an implementation of which access control model? A. Rule-based access control. B. Role-based access control. C. Discretionary access control. D. Mandatory access control. The correct answer is A. Rule-based access control. Explanation. Rule-based access control uses specific rules with if-then logic to make access decisions. The rule provided is a clear example, where the condition is the source IP address and the action is to deny or allow access. It is not based on a user's role, their discretion, or a system of security labels. 58. A company's security policy states that no single individual should be able to both approve a wire transfer and execute the final payment. This requires that these two permissions be assigned to mutually exclusive roles. This control is an example of A. Least privilege. B. Separation of duties. C. Need to know. D. Two-person control. The correct answer is B. Separation of duties. Explanation. Separation of duties is a foundational security principle that prevents a single individual from having control over all aspects of a critical task. By splitting the task between two different roles, approver and executor, the company mitigates the risk of fraud and error. This is often implemented via constraints in an RBAC model. 59. An organization's access control policy states, a user who is a member of the auditor role cannot simultaneously be a member of the accounts_payable role. This is a preventative control against potential fraud. This is an example of which security concept? A. Hierarchical role-based access control, RBAC. B. Dynamic separation of duties, DSD. C. Constrained user interface. D. Static separation of duty, SSD. The correct answer is D. Static separation of duty, SSD. Explanation. Static separation of duty, SSD, is a control within RBAC that prevents a user from being assigned to conflicting roles, like auditor and accounts payable, at any time. This is a fundamental constraint on role assignment itself. Dynamic separation of duties, DSD, would allow a user to be a member of both roles, but would prevent them from being active in both during the same session. 60. A pharmaceutical company needs to strictly control access to its drug research data. Access decisions must be based on a formal system of security labels attached to every data object and corresponding security clearances assigned to every user. This is a core requirement of which access control model? A. Discretionary access control, DAC. B. Role-based access control, RBAC. C. Mandatory access control, MAC. D. Rule-based access control. The correct answer is C. Mandatory access control, MAC. Explanation. Mandatory access control, MAC, is defined by its use of a security label system where subjects, users, have clearances and objects, data, have classifications. The operating system enforces access decisions by comparing these labels based on a fixed security policy, making it the ideal model for environments where confidentiality is paramount, such as military or high-security research. 61. A security team is deploying an identity as a service, IDaaS, solution to manage employee access to cloud applications. The team must define which employees are allowed to use which applications. For example, only employees in the sales department can access the CRM system. This process of defining and managing user permissions is known as A. Authentication. B. Provisioning. C. Authorization. D. Registration. The correct answer is C. Authorization. Explanation. Authorization is the process of determining whether an authenticated subject has the necessary rights and privileges to perform a requested action or access a resource. Defining which roles or users can access specific applications is a fundamental aspect of authorization. 62. A high-security facility uses an iris scanner for entry. The system vendor states that the scanner's equal error rate, AER, is 0.01%. What does this metric signify? A. The system will incorrectly reject an authorized user 0.01% of the time. B. The system will incorrectly accept an unauthorized user 0.01% of the time. C. This is the rate at which the false acceptance rate, FAR, and false rejection rate, FRR, are equal. D. The system correctly identifies users 99.99% of the time. The correct answer is C. This is the rate at which the false acceptance rate, FAR, and false rejection rate, FRR, are equal. Explanation. The equal error rate, AER, also known as the crossover error rate, CER, is the point on a biometric system's sensitivity scale where the false acceptance rate, FAR, is equal to the false rejection rate, FRR. It is considered the most reliable single metric for measuring the overall accuracy of a biometric system. 63. In an access control matrix, the access rights listed in a column are associated with a specific file or resource, indicating which users can perform what actions on it. This column of permissions represents what? A. A capability list. B. An access control list, ACL. C. A security label. D. A user's role. The correct answer is B. An access control list, ACL. Explanation. An access control list, ACL, is bound to an object, the resource, and defines the permissions for various subjects, users, on that object. In an access control matrix, this corresponds to a column. A capability list, conversely, is bound to a subject and corresponds to a row in the matrix. 64. A company has a policy that an employee can be a member of the cashier role and the cashier_supervisor role. However, the system is configured to prevent that employee from activating the permissions of both roles during the same login session. For example, if they log in as a supervisor, their cashiering functions are unavailable. This is an implementation of what? A. Static separation of duty, SSD. B. Least privilege. C. Need to know. D. Dynamic separation of duties, DSD. The correct answer is D. Dynamic separation of duties, DSD. Explanation. Dynamic separation of duties, DSD, is a control that constrains the combination of privileges that can be activated within a single session. This allows a user to hold conflicting roles but prevents them from being used simultaneously, mitigating risks like fraud during a live session. SSD, by contrast, would prevent the user from being a member of both roles at all. 65. A company's information classification policy defines 3 levels: public, internal, and confidential. An access control system is implemented that assigns these classification labels to all documents and assigns corresponding clearance levels to all users. The system then automatically enforces rules based on these labels. This is a characteristic of which access control model? A. Discretionary access control, DAC. B. Mandatory access control, MAC. C. Role-based access control, RBAC. D. Attribute-based access control, ABAC. The correct answer is B. Mandatory access control, MAC. Explanation. The core of mandatory access control, MAC, is the use of security labels, classifications, on objects and clearances on subjects to make access decisions. The system, not the data owner, mandates the access rules based on comparing these labels, which is exactly what the scenario describes. 66. An operating system's access control mechanism is based on a data structure that is bound to each user. This structure contains a list of every file and resource the user can access, along with the specific permissions for each. Kerberos, which issues a ticket to a user, is an example of this model. What is this data structure called? A. An access control list, ACL. B. A security policy. C. A capability table. D. A role profile. The correct answer is C. A capability table. Explanation. A capability table is a list of objects and the operations allowed on those objects for a specific subject, user. This structure is bound to the subject. The scenario describes this perfectly, contrasting it with an ACL, which is bound to the object. 67. An access control mechanism on a data loss prevention, DLP, gateway inspects the contents of all outgoing emails. If an email body or attachment contains a string of characters that matches the pattern of a credit card number, the system blocks the email. This is an example of what type of access control? A. Context-dependent access control. B. Content-dependent access control. C. Discretionary access control, DAC. D. Role-based access control, RBAC. The correct answer is B. Content-dependent access control. Explanation. Content-dependent access control makes decisions based on the content or sensitivity of the data itself. The DLP system is inspecting the email's content to look for specific sensitive information, credit card numbers, and making a control decision based on its findings. 68. What is the fundamental difference between a capability table and an access control list, ACL? A. A capability table is bound to a subject, while an ACL is bound to an object. B. An ACL is used in MAC systems, while capability tables are used in DAC systems. C. A capability table stores permissions in clear text, while an ACL stores them in a hashed format. D. An ACL can grant permissions, while a capability table can only deny them. The correct answer is A. A capability table is bound to a subject, while an ACL is bound to an object. Explanation. This is the core distinction between the two concepts. A capability table is associated with a user, subject, and lists all the resources they can access. An ACL is associated with a resource, object, and lists all the users who can access it. They are two different ways of representing the same information in an access control matrix. 69. An access control system is designed to grant access to a resource only if a set of conditions is met. For example, if the user's role is manager and the time is between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m., then access is permitted. This if-then logic is characteristic of which access control model? A. Discretionary access control, DAC. B. Attribute-based access control, ABAC. C. Mandatory access control, MAC. D. Rule-based access control. The correct answer is D. Rule-based access control. Explanation. Rule-based access control operates on a set of predefined rules that specify what is allowed or disallowed. These rules are often expressed in if-then statements and are enforced by the system. While ABAC also uses rules, the simple if-then structure based on specific conditions is the defining feature of a rule-based model. 70. Immediately after an employee is terminated, the IT department disables their Active Directory account, preventing network login. What is the most critical next step in the deprovisioning process to mitigate remaining access risks? A. Recovering the employee's corporate laptop. B. Removing the employee's name from the email distribution lists. C. Archiving the employee's data from the file server. D. Revoking access to all third-party cloud applications, e.g., Salesforce, Slack, that use separate credentials. The correct answer is D. Revoking access to all third-party cloud applications, e.g., Salesforce, Slack, that use separate credentials. Explanation. A comprehensive deprovisioning process must account for all points of access. Orphaned accounts in external, third-party systems are a common and significant vulnerability that persists even after internal network access is cut off. While recovering assets, A, and managing data, B, C, are important, the immediate risk of unauthorized access via federated or separate cloud accounts is the most critical to address. 71. A company enforces a policy requiring all department managers to conduct a quarterly review of their employees' access rights to various systems and applications. What is the primary security objective of this administrative control? A. To ensure employees have the necessary permissions to perform their job duties efficiently. B. To identify and revoke excessive permissions that users have accumulated over time. C. To prepare documentation for external auditors. D. To measure the workload of the IT security team. The correct answer is B. To identify and revoke excessive permissions that users have accumulated over time. Explanation. The main goal of periodic user access reviews is to enforce the principle of least privilege. This process is designed to detect and remedy authorization creep, where users retain access rights from previous roles that are no longer necessary, thus reducing the organization's risk exposure. 72. An employee who started in a junior marketing role has been promoted several times over 5 years, eventually becoming the director of marketing. A security audit reveals that the employee's account still retains permissions from every previous role, giving them far more access than their current job requires. This situation is a classic example of A. Role definition. B. A race condition. C. Authorization creep. D. A false positive. The correct answer is C. Authorization creep. Explanation. Authorization creep, also known as privilege creep, is the gradual accumulation of access rights beyond what a user's current job role requires. It typically happens when permissions from old roles are not revoked upon promotion or transfer, leading to a violation of the principle of least privilege. 73. A junior system administrator on a Linux server needs to restart a network service, a task requiring root privileges. Instead of being given the root password, the administrator is instructed to use a command that temporarily elevates their privileges for that single action, which is then logged for auditing. Which command in practice does this describe? A. Using su to switch to the root user for the entire session. B. Using chmod to change the service's permissions. C. Using sudo to execute a specific command with elevated privileges. D. Logging in directly with the shared root account credentials. The correct answer is C. Using sudo to execute a specific command with elevated privileges. Explanation. The sudo command provides a mechanism for granting temporary, granular, and auditable privilege escalation. It allows standard users to run specific commands as a superuser without needing the root password, aligning perfectly with the principle of least privilege. Using su or a shared root account grants broad, less auditable privileges. Chmod changes file permissions, which is not the correct action here. 74. An automated script runs nightly backups on a database server. The script needs to log into the database with specific permissions to perform its tasks. The credentials for this script are stored in a secure, centralized system that automatically rotates the password every 24 hours and provides the script with the new password just before it runs. This approach is an example of managing what type of account? A. User account. B. Privileged account. C. Shared account. D. Service account. The correct answer is D. Service account. Explanation. A service account is a non-human account used by applications, scripts, or services to interact with other systems. Best practices for managing these accounts, as shown in the scenario, involve using a credential vault to automate password rotation and eliminate hard-coded credentials, significantly improving security. 75. An auditor reviewing an organization's identity management practices discovers that the company has no formal process for terminating access for employees who leave the company. As a result, several former employees still have active accounts months after their departure. This is a failure in which phase of the access provisioning lifecycle? A. Provisioning. B. Account review. C. Role transition. D. Deprovisioning. The correct answer is D. Deprovisioning. Explanation. Deprovisioning is the process of removing or disabling user objects, accounts, and access rights when a user is no longer authorized, such as upon termination. The failure to remove these accounts is a direct failure of the deprovisioning process. 76. A developer needs temporary access to a production database to troubleshoot a critical issue. The organization uses an identity management system that integrates with a workflow engine. The developer submits a request, which is then sent to their manager for approval. Once approved, the system automatically creates a temporary account that is valid for 4 hours. This entire process is an example of A. User provisioning. B. Manual deprovisioning. C. Role transition. D. Password synchronization. The correct answer is A. User provisioning. Explanation. User provisioning refers to the creation, maintenance, and deactivation of user objects and their attributes. The scenario describes an automated workflow for creating a temporary account with specific entitlements, which is a core function of an advanced user provisioning system. 77. An employee in the finance department moves to a new role in the marketing department. The IT team correctly assigns the user to the marketing role in the identity management system but fails to remove them from the finance role. What is this common identity management failure called? A. Deprovisioning. B. Authorization creep. C. Privilege escalation. D. Erase condition. The correct answer is B. Authorization creep. Explanation. Authorization creep occurs when a user accumulates access permissions over time as they move between different roles in an organization, and their old, unnecessary permissions are not revoked. This violates the principle of least privilege and increases security risk. 78. A company has several automated processes that run on servers to perform tasks like data synchronization and report generation. These processes use dedicated non-human accounts with stored credentials to access necessary resources. What is the most significant security risk associated with these accounts if not managed properly? A. The accounts might consume too much CPU time. B. The account passwords are often unchanged for long periods and may be hard-coded in scripts, making them easy to compromise. C. The accounts cannot be used for interactive logon. D. The accounts cannot be part of standard user groups. The correct answer is B. The account passwords are often unchanged for long periods and may be hard-coded in scripts, making them easy to compromise. Explanation. Service accounts pose a significant risk because their credentials are often static, stored in insecure locations like configuration files or scripts, and rarely changed. This makes them a prime target for attackers, as compromising a single service account can provide persistent, privileged access to critical systems. Proper management, such as using a credential vault, is essential. 79. An employee is being transferred from the sales department to the product management department. The IT department has a defined workflow for this process, which includes adding the user to the product_manager security group and, critically, removing them from the sales_team group. What is this process known as? A. Onboarding. B. Deprovisioning. C. Privilege escalation. D. Role transition. The correct answer is D. Role transition. Explanation. A role transition is a specific event within the identity lifecycle where an individual moves from one job function to another. A proper role transition process involves updating their permissions to reflect their new responsibilities, which includes both granting new access and, just as importantly, revoking old, unnecessary access. 80. A security team is conducting a periodic review of all user accounts in the domain. They generate a report of all accounts that have not been logged into for over 90 days. According to best practices, what action should be taken for these accounts? A. Delete them immediately. B. Force a password reset at the next login. C. Disable or suspend them pending investigation. D. Move them to a lower privileged organizational unit. The correct answer is C. Disable or suspend them pending investigation. Explanation. Dormant or inactive accounts pose a security risk as they could be compromised and used without being noticed. The standard best practice is to first disable or suspend these accounts. This prevents their immediate use while allowing time for investigation to determine if the account is still needed before it is permanently deleted, deprovisioned. 81. During an incident response, investigators discover that an attacker compromised a low-privilege service account on a web server. The attacker then exploited a system vulnerability to gain root-level access on the server. What is the term for this action of gaining higher-level privileges from a compromised account? A. Role transition. B. Privilege escalation. C. Account provisioning. D. Authorization creep. The correct answer is B. Privilege escalation. Explanation. Privilege escalation is the act of exploiting a bug, design flaw, or configuration oversight in an operating system or software application to gain elevated access to resources that are normally protected from an application or user. Moving from a low-privilege service account to root is a classic example. 82. A financial institution conducts a mandatory quarterly access review for all employees with access to the core banking system. What is the primary trigger for this type of review? A. A user changing roles. B. A specific security incident. C. A predefined, time-based schedule as mandated by policy. D. A request from a department manager. The correct answer is C. A predefined, time-based schedule as mandated by policy. Explanation. While user access reviews can be triggered by events like role changes or incidents, a periodic review is one that occurs at a regular, scheduled interval, e.g., quarterly, semi-annually. This is a proactive administrative control to ensure permissions are consistently aligned with the principle of least privilege over time. 83. A company's security policy requires that all service accounts used by applications must have their passwords changed every 30 days. The IT department finds this difficult to manage manually, as it requires updating credentials in dozens of scripts and configuration files. What is the best solution to automate and secure this process? A. Use a single, complex password for all service accounts. B. Store the passwords in a spreadsheet on a shared drive. C. Implement a credential management system or password vault that can programmatically manage and rotate the passwords. D. Disable password expiration for all service accounts to avoid service disruption. The correct answer is C. Implement a credential management system or password vault that can programmatically manage and rotate the passwords. Explanation. A credential management system, or enterprise password vault, is the appropriate technical control for this problem. These systems can securely store service account credentials and provide APIs for applications to retrieve them just in time, while also automating the complex and error-prone task of periodic password rotation. 84. When evaluating two competing biometric systems, a security analyst notes that System A has a crossover error rate, CER, of 2%, while System B has a CER of 5%. Based solely on this metric, what can the analyst conclude? A. System B is more accurate than System A. B. System A is more accurate than System B. C. Both systems are equally secure, but System A is faster. D. The false acceptance rate, FAR, of both systems is too high. The correct answer is B. System A is more accurate than System B. Explanation. The crossover error rate, CER, is the point where the false rejection rate, FRR, equals the false acceptance rate, FAR. It is the single most important metric for gauging a biometric system's overall accuracy. A lower CER indicates a more accurate system. Therefore, System A with a 2% CER is superior to System B with a 5% CER. 85. A user is required to use a hardware token for two-factor authentication. The system presents a random 8-digit number on the screen. The user must enter this number into their token, which then generates a response code that serves as the one-time password. This mechanism is an example of what? A. Asynchronous challenge response. B. Synchronous time-based. C. Synchronous counter-based. D. Cognitive password. The correct answer is A. Asynchronous challenge response. Explanation. This describes an asynchronous token that uses a challenge/response protocol. The server provides a challenge, the random number or nonce, and the token calculates a response. This method does not depend on synchronized clocks or event counters like synchronous tokens do. 86. To defend against offline password cracking attacks, a system administrator ensures that when hashing user passwords for storage, a unique, random value is added to each password before the hashing algorithm is applied. What is this protective measure called? A. Salting. B. Peppering. C. Key stretching. D. Hashing. The correct answer is A. Salting. Explanation. Adding a unique random value to each password before hashing is known as salting. A primary benefit of salting is that it renders pre-computed hash lists, such as rainbow tables, ineffective, because the hash for a given password will be different for every user depending on their unique salt. 87. A company provides dial-in access for remote support staff. To centralize authentication, they use a server that receives authentication requests from the Network Access Server, NAS. This authentication server uses UDP and only encrypts the password within the access request packet. Which AAA protocol is being described? A. TACACS+. B. Radius. C. Diameter. D. Kerberos. The correct answer is B. Radius. Explanation. These are the classic characteristics of Radius, remote authentication dial-in user service. It uses UDP as its transport protocol and only encrypts the user's password in the packet sent from the Radius client, the NAS, to the Radius server. TACACS Plus uses TCP and encrypts the entire packet. 88. A user's token-based authentication system works by synchronizing an internal counter on the token with a counter on the authentication server. Each time the user requests a password, both counters increment, and the token generates a password based on the counter value and a secret seed. What type of one-time password, OTP, system is this? A. Asynchronous challenge response. B. Synchronous time-based. C. Synchronous counter-based. D. Biometric-based. The correct answer is C. Synchronous counter-based. Explanation. This describes a synchronous OTP system where the token and the server are synchronized based on an event, in this case, the incrementing of a counter. It is not based on a real-time clock, time-based, or an interactive challenge response mechanism. 89. To prevent attackers from easily discovering the purpose of accounts, a company's user ID naming standard prohibits the use of identifiers that suggest a user's job function. For example, an ID like admin01 or finance_manager would be a violation. This principle requires that user IDs be A. Unique. B. Non-descriptive. C. Shared. D. Temporary. The correct answer is B. Non-descriptive. Explanation. A key principle in creating secure identifiers is that they should be non-descriptive, meaning they should not reveal the user's role, position, or level of privilege. This forces an attacker to do more reconnaissance work to identify high-value targets. 90. An organization is implementing Kerberos for its enterprise-wide single sign-on (SSO) solution. During a design review, a security architect raises a concern about service availability. What is the most significant architectural weakness of Kerberos that must be mitigated with redundancy? A. Session keys are temporarily stored on user workstations. B. It is vulnerable to password guessing attacks against the KDC. C. The key distribution center, KDC, represents a single point of failure. D. It requires precise time synchronization across all clients and servers. The correct answer is C. The key distribution center, KDC, represents a single point of failure. Explanation. In a Kerberos architecture, the key distribution center, KDC, is the central authentication authority. If the KDC becomes unavailable, no new authentication tickets can be issued, effectively preventing users from accessing any network resources. This makes it a critical single point of failure that must be addressed with a high availability, redundant configuration. The other options are valid weaknesses but relate to confidentiality or operational dependency, not the primary architectural availability risk. 91. A company uses a Radius server for remote access authentication. An administrator is comparing it to TCAX Plus and notes a significant difference in how the protocols handle transport. What is the transport protocol used by Radius, and what is the implication of this choice? A. TCP, which ensures reliable delivery of authentication packets. B. UDP, which requires the Radius application itself to handle checks for reliability and timeouts. C. TCP, which allows for easier firewall traversal. D. UDP, which provides faster performance by default. The correct answer is B. UDP, which requires the Radius application itself to handle checks for reliability and timeouts. Explanation. Radius uses UDP as its transport protocol. Because UDP is a connectionless and unreliable protocol, the Radius application code must include its own logic to detect and handle transmission problems like packet loss or timeouts. This is a key differentiator from TCAX Plus, which uses the more reliable TCP protocol. 92. A company is replacing static passwords with a more secure method for system administrators. The new system requires administrators to present a smart card and then enter a PIN on a keypad before they are granted access. This is an example of what? A. Single-factor authentication. B. Biometric authentication. C. Strong authentication. D. Passwordless authentication. The correct answer is C. Strong authentication. Explanation. Strong authentication, also known as multi-factor authentication, MFA, requires the use of two or more different authentication factors. In this case, the smart card is something you have, and the PIN is something you know. This combination of two factors meets the definition of strong authentication. 93. A security administrator is performing a password audit by using a tool that attempts to guess passwords by trying every word from a large text file of common words and phrases. What is this type of attack called? A. Brute force attack. B. Dictionary attack. C. Social engineering attack. D. Rainbow table attack. The correct answer is B. Dictionary attack. Explanation. A dictionary attack specifically uses a precompiled list of words, a dictionary, to guess passwords. This is different from a brute force attack, which systematically tries every possible combination of characters, and a rainbow table attack, which uses pre-computed hashes. 94. A network-based intrusion detection system, NIDS, analyzes traffic and alerts on any packet that contains a specific byte sequence known to be part of the code red worm. What type of detection methodology is this IDS using? A. Anomaly-based. B. Heuristic-based. C. Signature-based. D. Protocol-based. The correct answer is C. Signature-based. Explanation. Signature-based, also known as knowledge-based or pattern matching, detection works by comparing network traffic against a database of known attack patterns, or signatures. Identifying a specific, known sequence of bytes from a famous worm is a classic example of this method. 95. To provide strong authentication for remote users, a company issues hardware tokens that generate a new 6-digit code every 60 seconds. The user must enter their username, their static password, and the 6-digit code from the token to log in. This authentication process uses which combination of factors? A. Something you have and something you are. B. Something you know and something you have. C. Something you know and something you are. D. 2 instances of something you know. The correct answer is B. Something you know and something you have. Explanation. This is a clear example of two-factor authentication. The static password is something you know, and the hardware token that generates the code is something you have. The combination of these two different factor types constitutes strong authentication. 96. An attacker gains access to a company's password file, which stores passwords as MD5 hashes without any salt. The attacker uses a large, pre-computed file containing millions of common passwords and their corresponding MD5 hash values to find matches. What is this pre-computed file called? A. A dictionary file. B. A brute force list. C. A rainbow table. D. A password vault. The correct answer is C. A rainbow table. Explanation. A rainbow table is a pre-computed lookup table used for reversing cryptographic hash functions, typically for cracking password hashes. By containing the hashes for all likely passwords, it allows an attacker to find a match much faster than by hashing each word from a dictionary file one by one during the attack. 97. A user receives an email that appears to be from their bank, warning of suspicious activity on their account. The email instructs them to click a link to verify their identity. The link leads to a fraudulent website designed to steal their login credentials. What is this type of attack called? A. Farming. B. Vishing. C. Phishing. D. Whaling. The correct answer is C. Phishing. Explanation. Phishing is a type of social engineering attack where an attacker sends a fraudulent message designed to trick a victim into revealing sensitive information. Using a deceptive email with a malicious link is the most common form of phishing. Farming involves DNS manipulation, and vishing is conducted via telephone. 98. An attacker discovers that a company's smart cards, used for authentication, are vulnerable to a fault generation attack. By exposing the card to precise voltage spikes while it is performing a cryptographic operation, the attacker can induce an error that causes the card to reveal its secret key. This is an example of what type of attack? A. A software-based attack. B. A social engineering attack. C. A passive attack. D. A physical, invasive attack. The correct answer is D. A physical, invasive attack. Explanation. This describes a physical attack on the smart card's hardware. Fault generation, or fault induction, is a sophisticated, invasive technique that involves manipulating the card's physical operating conditions, like power or clock signals, to disrupt its internal computations and extract secrets. 99. A user attempts to access their bank's website by typing the correct URL. However, a compromised DNS server on their network resolves this URL to the IP address of a malicious server, which hosts a fraudulent lookalike website. What is this attack called? A. Phishing. B. Farming. C. Vishing. D. DNS tunneling. The correct answer is B. Farming. Explanation. Farming is an attack that redirects a website's traffic to a different, malicious site by corrupting the domain name resolution process. It is particularly insidious because the user may have done everything right, e.g., typing the correct URL, but is still redirected due to the compromised DNS infrastructure. 100. A user is issued a token that generates a one-time password, OTP. The token has no keypad and no ability to receive a challenge. It simply displays a new password that is synchronized with the authentication server based on a shared secret and the current time. What type of token is this? A. Asynchronous challenge response token. B. Synchronous time-based token. C. Contactless smart card. D. Biometric token. The correct answer is B. Synchronous time-based token. Explanation. This describes a synchronous time-based token. Both the token and the server use the same algorithm to generate the same password based on two inputs, a secret key, or seed, unique to the token and the current time. The synchronization of time is critical for this method to work. Thank you for watching to the end of this video. Please like this video and don't forget to subscribe to our channel to stay updated on our new tutorials, quizzes, and multiple choice questions, and leave your feedback or queries in the comments below.